Hello, Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here, and Mr. Berry, also known as Statman. Welcome to Stu and Adam's end of season prediction review for 2024-25 season. We won't go into a fanfare, we don't need it. So what we do is we just go straight in and say hello to those in the chat. So we've got Desty all around the fields of Anfield Road, where once we watched the Kings. Thank you very much. Des, nice to see you, mate. We've got Kieran Ball. Hello, how are you, sir? Congratulations on your trophies this season, boys. I'm sure you both understand that I'd prefer to hide and sulk about in the corner during this stream. That's totally understandable. And you're totally understandable. But I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but nice of you to join us. Thank you very much. We've got Simon Fandanga. Hello, sir. How are you? Nice of you to join us. People saying hello to each other. Retro Bunga. Hello, mate. How are you? Nice of you to join us. Thank you very much. I didn't know you were a football fan.
He isn't. Actually, there's a really interesting story about Nicky and football. I hope you don't mind me sharing it. I might share it later. Really interesting.
Well, I know you must well share it now.
Well, again, I hope you don't mind. But Nicky used to be a season ticket holder at a football club. And for 20 odd years. And about 5 years ago, he told me he just completely stopped watching football altogether. Never watches it anymore.
Well, I never.
And he's in American football now. So,
fair enough. I mean, I you know what? I used to love watching American football. I've not watched it for the last couple of seasons.
I quite enjoy it. Yeah.
We've got Jess, Epic Badger. I love Enter Sport. How are you, sir? Nice to join us. And we have Georgie. There you go. Sorry, Stu hasn't turned off the Purple Crowns laugher. No, well, I can't turn it off.
I think you have to do it individually, don't you? People have to go in and do it themselves.
Oh, do they? Oh, God knows. I don't know. I thought I could do it here, but I can't. So, never mind. What's this? West Ham broke my heart moving stage.
That was it.
Oh, wow. Oh, there you are. There you are. So, Mr. Berry, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I thought this would be an interesting one. We certainly haven't had I would say, a normal Premiership season this year. It's been quite an unpredictable one, but it'd be interesting. Obviously, we gave our predictions at the start of the season. I famously say quite regularly that football is probably the most unpredictable sport to predict. So it'd be interesting to see who did that the best, should we say?
You say that it's been a very unpredictable season. Yeah. In what aspect? I mean, is it because it's a lot that the quality's improved? Teams, the mid-table teams have improved a lot this season. Your Bournemouths, your Brentfords.
Well, they have, and that's
stuff like that.
That's reflected in the points totals and stuff like that for teams. But I think it's more to do with the fact that where some teams, including the team I support, finished, where you've got the likes of some other teams kind of again playing really well and getting up there, like pushing like the people that. See, football up until recently has always been, you've got it's almost split into three sections, the Premiership. You've got your bottom third, your middle third, and your top third, really. And it's never really been upset in any kind of way for the last 20, 25 years, I would say. You might have the odd season like Leicester, obviously 10 years ago. But it's pretty much standard stuff. You're pretty much confident who's going to finish the top six and stuff like that. And I think this season, it's starting, and probably the last couple of seasons, it's starting to adjust and change. And then obviously you look at the cups and who won the league and FA Cup, even if you don't talk about the Europa. But the FA and the League Cup, they had completely, interesting winners. Like teams, let's just talk about it now. Newcastle, not won a trophy in 70 years. You've got Crystal Palace, never won a trophy, and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think that's really fascinating how, I think the league's getting more and more competitive and a lot harder to predict.
Definitely. Let's just quickly say hello to Martin. Evening all. I just wanted to say it's very generous of you to spend 2 hours talking about Liverpool being head and shoulders
above.
It's
not going to be 2 hours long. Trust us. We're too tired for that.
Good evening. Football ain't my thing, but you're a top man, APD. Thank you very much. Thank you. What's this? Stu needs to man up and go for lunch at the Giggling. Behave yourself. I was speaking to Steph earlier, but that's another story. But yeah, I mean, so
Except for obviously, we don't need to talk about who won it at the moment. We can talk about Liverpool in a minute. But what have you thought of this season? If you take your team out,
do you know what? I found it a really, really interesting season. I really did. Like you say, I think the league by far is probably the most competitive league in Europe, if not the
100%.
world. I mean, what league would you ever have, or what other league would you ever have, a teams that finished 17th and 16th playing in a Europa League final? You won't. It's as simple as that. I think, teams like Brentford, I mean, they've joined the Premier League. They really have. They've really sort of like stood toe to toe with the big clubs. And I think that era now where the big clubs are going to dominate, I think slowly coming to an end, because a lot of teams are playing catch up. I mean, Bournemouth had a great season. Nottingham Forest, we've not even spoke about Nottingham Forest. They've had a great season, and there was shouts for them being in, the Champions League next season. They kind of fell away towards the end. But I mean, what a great season they've had. They just avoided relegation last season. Can they do it again next season? That's the big question. You don't reckon they will?
I'm not convinced, but no? But we'll see. But you're right. I think it's a really interesting one. I think, well, like I was saying, there's always been this kind of, you got a top 6, top 8, and pretty much nothing has disturbed that for about 20 years. It just depends on where them teams finished in that top 6, top 8. One season, one of them might finish 4th, they might finish 2nd, they might finish 5th or 6th. It doesn't really make much difference. But there's a lot more. I feel like Tim will be pleased about this, but I genuinely think it's true. You look at someone like Fulham. I think Fulham have had a really good season. They fell away. They lost quite a few towards the end.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Fulham had a really good season, and they were unlucky not to finish in the top 10. I think, to be honest, I think they could have even got that European place if they had just not fell away so much towards the end. Like I said, you've got Bournemouth. I'm just looking at the league now, and it's bizarre in some respects. It's really bizarre.
At what point in the chat do we all like? Well, you do every week, guys. Yeah. You do every week, every live stream. So today's no different.
but yeah, I've got to see the fact that it didn't change. Because it's not due to be charged yet. I don't think people understand the timeline yet. They're not gonna. It's not even going to finish till November. So Man City will get charged at some point, but it won't be till at least November, until all the. It's like a huge, big investigation. So it's not even finished yet.
So Gary Moore says consistency is not a given. He's made such a good point. He put it in twice. Yeah. Cheers, Gary.
Well, no, it's true. But like I said, it's gone a bit topsy-turvy this season. It'd be interesting to see whether it goes back to how it's been the last sort of 15, 20 years, or whether it continues. I hope in some respects, I want it to kind of still be like this. Like, what other league do you get where the bottom, I don't care what anybody says. If your team is top and you're playing the bottom of the league, it's not a given you're going to win.
No, absolutely.
It really isn't a given you're going to win. Now, you might think, we should win, but it is never a given. And you go back to the 90s, you would never have that, or even the early 2000s. You would just, if you were playing in any team in the bottom 6, you'd be like, that's an easy win. You wouldn't even think about it.
Do you think the league now, the Premier League, has got to a point where you cannot afford to drop points, whether you're playing for the league title, whether you're playing for top 4, whether you're playing for Europe, or whether you're playing to stay up in the league? Because once you start dropping points, it really is difficult to try and get back. I mean, you just got to look at Southampton. I mean, they've had the lowest points tally, haven't they, in the Premiership season?
Not ever. I think they they might have. Did Derby beat them?
Derby got 19. Derby got 19.
Well, then I thought they got 13. I'll have to look for that. But either way, Southampton were terrible this year.
Yeah,
they lost 30 games, which is just mental when there's only 38 games in the league. But you got to feel sorry for them. That they were one of the teams that I suspected would struggle this year. But I was even shocked just how much they did struggle, to be honest. But
you know what? I'm going to stick by my point that I made. I think it was in the mid-season review, where Burnley come up last year. They come up playing some really good football, but they got found out in the Premier League, and it's down. I know managers are stubborn and they don't want to change their way of playing, but surely the aim of the game is to stay in the Premier League and try and be consistent in the Premier League and be a regular team in the Premier League. So surely,
there is
if a team's playing poorly and they're losing and they're dropping points, playing a certain way, you've got to change it up. Surely the manager's got to think, hang on, we need to stay up here. Let's try this and try something different.
The numbers do back that up. So basically, if you don't adapt, you tend to get the fewest points. Any team that has got a very headstrong manager who only plays a certain way, whether it be Spurs, Man U have been a great example of that this year. The only time, for example, Spurs have changed the way they played was in Europe. And isn't it funny? They changed the way they played in Europe and they went and won it. So, it just shows, doesn't it, that if you adapt, you can do things. But I just checked. Southampton, Derby did get the lowest points. I thought they did 11 points.
They got 11 points. Wow.
Yeah, that was in 2007, 2008. So I didn't think Southampton, but Southampton are second. Yeah. So it's pretty low. Yeah. But going back to the numbers, actually, and on that point, the league as a whole, the points are very low. So Liverpool won the league with the lowest amount of points since 10 years ago, since I think Leicester won it. So it shows how competitive it is when the team that wins it is still got a fairly low points total. And for example, last season, Liverpool would have been third with the points totals they got. And for example, to get in the top four last season, you needed 65, 66 points. Yeah. Well, to get in the top four this season, you needed 69. So again, it's like one of them things. It's a bit of an interesting one that.
I find that really interesting. Find that really interesting regarding Liverpool, because up until Christmas they'd only lost one game and they lost 4 games all season. But albeit 2 of them were the league had been won anyway. But I mean, even still,
well, it's a nice segue. Let's talk about Liverpool, because I think it's a very fascinating subject and a very interesting case study there. So you've got Slot, who came in, and this is from obviously an outsider. Like, I'm not a Liverpool fan, as you know. You got Slot, who came in, hardly changed the team. He changed the tactical approach, maybe, and a bit of tweaking. But he brought a player he hardly played in Chiesa. So he pretty much didn't change the team, and he won the league. And he done it pretty much, you could say Liverpool won the league by Christmas, pretty much. I know they hadn't technically, but for all intents and purposes, no one was going to catch them after that time. So that's, where they go now for next year, if they still remain dominant or they make a couple of good signings in order to continue to remain dominant, would be really interesting. I know this is something Si has said quite regularly, and I've spoke to Si about this, is what kind of player does Slot actually identify as being someone to improve Liverpool? Because at the moment, you don't really have a sense of who he might buy. And there's a few names in the rumour mills and stuff like that, but nothing's been signed, sealed and delivered yet. So it'd be really interesting. I think
he's signed.
Has he actually signed, though?
He's signed, yeah. Okay,
so that's one, yeah. But it's an interesting one, I feel, that like I think Liverpool will continue to be one of the best sides. So that's just something I genuinely think will happen. But it'd be interesting to see how that progresses there, because he's come in, pretty much not changed anything, and won the league. So
he didn't have to change anything, though, did he? He didn't have to change anything. So I to be honest with you, I was expecting when Klopp said he was going to leave midway through last season, I was like, oh God. And I was kind of thinking that we were going to have another Man United on our hands, where it's going to take ages for the team to rebuild. But you've got to look at the differences. Liverpool were in a much better position for Slot to take over than David Moyes was at Man United when Ferguson left. Now, that being said, I still didn't think that Liverpool were going to go on and win the league. I mean, I think, what did I have in 4th place or in the top 4 or something like that, 3rd or something like that?
I'm just actually having a look. There was only 2 people predicted they'd win the league out of everybody who done the predictions. And we had about, 17 people, 18 people do the predictions. And them 2 people were Si and Martin, although Martin did predict Liverpool would win everything. Just thought I'd say that. But yeah. They're the only 2 people.
I mean, I don't
think the season they've had. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, what I'm trying to say is...
Yeah, I was going to say, the season they had, especially when you had all the hoo-ha. Oh, I think we've got a time lapse here. We've got a time lapse.
Okay. You go.
We've got a time lapse. So I was going to say that the season Liverpool have had...
Yeah.
Especially when you had the Salah contract up in the air, you had Van Dijk's contract up in the air, then you had all the hoo-ha with Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. That could have been a distraction. They bought Chiesa. He played a handful of games, if that.
Yeah.
And the tactical masterstroke from Slot was putting Gravenberch as a central defensive midfielder, that number 6 role. I thought he's been absolutely outstanding. He has been
he was
absolute top notch.
Luckily,
Salah's been on fire this season as well.
Yeah,
he's a great player. Salah's been on fire, but the thing is, I think where Liverpool lack is the quality on the bench. I don't think Jones is good enough. I don't think Chiesa's good enough. I don't think Elliott's good enough. I don't think Wataru Endo's good enough. I don't think Kwanzaa's good enough. I don't think Gomez is good enough. I don't think Costa Simicas is good enough. And I don't think Darwin Núñez is anywhere near good enough to be a number 9 at Liverpool. I mean, if it wasn't for Salah, we'd have been up. We would never have won the league. You know, he's practically taken that team by the scruff of the neck and got those goals himself and assists.
There is a lot of arguments for that, but at the same sort of time, and this is where I would say, is teams that win the league normally have 1 or 2 standout players. And you can say that about the season. Yeah, that's exactly. I thought that was the case. I had to Google though. What was it? I can't remember. What I was going to say is the teams that win the league, normally there is 1 or 2 players who play really well. So you could say that about any team. You could say like, oh, if Man U didn't have Cantona in the 90s, they wouldn't have won the league and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I think the fact Salah had a good season, you know, and to say, oh, well, without him, that's obvious. Without him, you would have struggled. That would have been the same with, you know, when Blackburn won the league. Without Shearer and Sutton, they wouldn't have won the league. So, you know, I don't think that's a slight in any way, shape or form. I think, you know, Salah had an unbelievable season. I think Liverpool as a whole had a great season, I think.
He did, but no one else come close to scoring those numbers. So you got Diogo Jota. He's a great player. He's probably one of the best finishers in the league, but he's
had a lot of injury problems.
He's had a lot of injuries. So whether we get back to his full fitness, I don't know. Darwin Núñez, Captain Chaos, he couldn't have bloody cow's backside with a banjo, that bloke. You know, I don't know whether it's just bad luck, a lack of form, or lack of confidence.
I don't. Moving on from that though, I don't feel that it's really a big issue. I think, you know, Liverpool, like I said, deservedly won the league, and they were consistent at the end of the day. They were consistent. They didn't really lose that much. Like I said, they only lost 2 games once they'd won the league. Who's going to bother once you won the league? You're going to, you know, tools are down then. So, you know, theoretically, they only lost 2 games all season, which is pretty good going. I think we should move. I don't want to go for every team, but there's a few notable teams we should definitely mention. Obviously, Arsenal finishing second again.
Can I just say, we've now decided that we're going to call Martin Arsenal because they've got so much in common, finishing second the last 3 seasons in the Premier League in the last 3 tournaments.
That's so harsh, like, to call someone that. Like, well, you know, that's pretty harsh. But no, Arsenal finishing second again. This isn't a dig, but, you know, I think Arsenal are a good team. And I've said that before, as much as I hate to admit it. And this is a hot take, but where do you kind of draw the line now as an Arsenal supporter and say, is Arteta the man to get you over the line? You know what I mean? Because he's obviously had three seasons now where he's finished second, and have come very close and stuff like that. Again, you know, that's not me having a dig. I'm just asking that question. I think that's a question a few Arsenal supporters are asking themselves. I think the majority is still pretty happy to have him, but, you know, it's definitely something they've got to consider. And then obviously you take a look at like Man City, you know, that they well fell off after Rodri got injured. They still managed to finish third, considering they had a terrible season by their usual performance.
There's always one, Daniel Chart.
I take his point, right? I do take his point. However, I would say this: there's so many, like, it's a butterfly effect. There's so many things that can happen. Like, I could say, oh, Spurs, if Spurs didn't have all them injuries, we wouldn't have finished where we finished. You know, it's just, anybody can come up with loads of excuses and that. I do think that the best team won the league this season, no matter what happened. You know what I mean? You can only play who's in front of you and the cards you're dealt. So, you know.
What I will add to that as well, Liverpool couldn't give a shit. I don't care. That's not Liverpool's problem. That's not Liverpool's problem. That's not Liverpool's problem. So the last two teams Liverpool have won the league, the last two times in 1990, 2019, 2020 season and this season, we have been by far the better team. No one's challenged, but that's not Liverpool's fault. That's down to the teams that are in the league. You can't have a go at Liverpool for that.
I'm
not being funny. I'm not being funny. Look at all the times Man United had won the league and they were like 15 points clear or 12 points clear or so many. No one batted an eyelid. It was just, oh, Man United are dominant. They're fantastic. Blah, 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 blah. The challengers fell away and all that sort of stuff. It's the same when City were dominating the league. But when Liverpool do it, it's, because no one challenged. Do you know what I mean? Behave yourself, Daniel Top. Behave yourself.
Well, at the end of the day, like I said, I think every team can say, well, if we had this, we had that and stuff like that. So I do think it's a pretty, mute point. Although I do, at the same sort of time, I do kind of slightly understand it, but I don't think it's enough to kind of really.
Anfield. I don't know who Anfield is, but hello, how are you? Nice you to join us.
I don't think it's enough.
I don't know who Anfield is, but hello, welcome to the live.
I'm going to mix it up a bit because we don't want to do a forensic.
No, I know.
Get you, but who was your surprise team of the season? Whether it was good or bad point, like who was your team that you thought, oh, they've come out of nowhere, done really well, or I was shocked they done so bad?
I've got to say Nottingham Forest because they were close to relegation last year and they've played some absolute stunning football. They beat all the top teams this season.
I think they've had good results. I wouldn't say their football's stunning because it's Nuno De Santo and he's like Mourinho light.
They beat Liverpool at Anfield. They've beat
City, but they're terrible football. It's led the men behind the ball.
But that's the thing, though. Look at Southampton and Ipswich, all trying to play pretty football, all trying to play the perfect game. They got relegated. Nottingham Forest did what they had to do to try and stay up, but the confidence in the team. They were almost chasing second place.
Well, I agree that they did what they had to do and they adapted well. However, I don't think it was great football. Whether that was what you probably not what you meant.
I think it was great football. It may be not the prettiest football to the eye and the most pleasing, but it was great football because they did what they needed to do to stay up. I mean, I'm guessing at the beginning of the season, Nottingham Forest and their fans probably would have never thought they're going to be challenging for Europe this season.
Well, I've just had a look.
Happy to stay up.
I've just had a look at the 18 people that done the predictions. 11 of us had Forest in their bottom three.
Yeah,
and which is about 60%. And I was one of them. I definitely thought Forest would. Definitely thought Forest. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at a comment. I definitely thought Forest would. Struggle. So you're right in that respect. They had they had a great season by their standards. So, okay. I probably do agree with him there, but that's anybody can say that. But for me, I'm going to actually, to be honest, I'm going to say my shock of the season really.
Yeah.
It's not a shock actually because I did predict it. However, I think it was a shock to a lot of other people. I was quite surprised. What I wasn't personally, I think a lot of people were quite surprised where Chelsea finished. I actually did think they'd finish quite high, but a lot of people at the start of the season didn't think they would. And in our predictions, a lot of people didn't have Chelsea to finish in a top four at all. I actually only think one person had Chelsea to finish in the top four, and that was Gary Moore. So I had them to finish fifth. And even if you take the top six, I think there's only about 6 people that had Chelsea to finish in the top 6. So, I think Chelsea for me were a bit of a surprise. However, personally, I did think they would finish in the top 5 because I put them 5th. Okay. So, but hey ho.
So Rob H has put, as a Cherries fan, we pounded Forest, horrific team. No. Look,
So
every team
he's
gets
a
every team gets a
Bournemouth fan,
tanking
then,
every
ain't he?
weekend.
So he's a Bournemouth
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter.
I do think their brand of football were terrible, if I'm honest. Like Forest, but then I've got first-hand experience as Nuno Santos as a manager, and he is a terrible. I think he's a terrible manager. He done well this year.
He's done well at Wolves. He's done well at Forest. Spurs just wasn't the team for him.
It depends what you consider.
Not everyone's going to fit.
It depends what you consider well. He didn't do that well at Wolves.
He kept them up, and he got them playing some decent football.
Again,
yeah, but the thing is, you might go, what do you class as decent football? What do you?
I think it depends what you look for. Like, I think his brand of football is a bit too anti-football for me. It's
did Man City play decent football this season?
At times, yeah. At times, again, City a hard one this season because they lost probably their best. Well, voted the best player in the world. They're losing Rodri.
I'm not taking it as an excuse. Not with the squad they've got and the money they've got to spend. No.
Yeah, but it is one of them things. I think they played pretty good football at times. They got battered, but they still finished third. People saying this is a horrific season for Man City, and they still finished third. So, but it is what it is. But shall we talk about the teams that won the cups, in particular the FA Cup and League Cup? Because I think that's a bit of an interesting thing. Because I can tell you that 2 people predicted Newcastle to win the League Cup. So who do you think them 2 people were?
Who predicted Newcastle to win the League Cup?
Kev Cox.
God damn you!
He had a very he was a big fan of Newcastle this year because he predicted them to finish 4th as well. They didn't, but they did finish 5th. But yeah, he predicted them to finish 4th and win the League Cup. So he fancied them this year. And Agent Winters predicted them to they still are under investigation for it. That could still happen, by the way. It just takes ages. The same Villa are under investigation for points deduction as well. So we'll see what happens there. That was quite interesting. What do you think of Newcastle winning the League Cup for the first time in 70 years?
Well,
a trophy for the first
time. I mean, I would have preferred them not to be honest with you. But to be fair, they were the much better team on the day. Okay. They deserved to win. They thoroughly deserved to win. I thought Liverpool were absolutely awful. But I'm not taking anything away from Newcastle. They showed the hunger, the passion from the very first whistle. They were the far better side.
Okay.
And fair play to them. And it's nice to see other teams winning it.
Okay. What about Palace winning the FA Cup?
Proper happy about that. Yeah,
so,
happy about that. I mean, they came close in. When was it? When did they lose to Man United they'd lost twice in the final, haven't they?
I think it was a few seasons back, but I can't
remember. They lost a couple of times in the final. But yeah, I again really, really pleased that Crystal Palace won it, because again you're seeing someone new on the cup, and fair play to them, and I hope they build on from there.
The weird thing is, so the League Cup. Let's take the League Cup for example. I read a stat before this year's League Cup, and I think the League Cup in the last 15, 20 years has only been won by one of 5 teams. Because it's boring. We've got to talk about a lot of teams. But no, it's only been won by 5 teams, the League Cup, in the last sort of 15, 20 years, roughly 5 teams. So it was nice to see a different name on it, I've got to admit.
Yeah.
I weirdly didn't want Newcastle to win it. I don't know why. I just didn't. Fair play to them. And obviously Palace winning the FA Cup, was great for them, to be honest. So, a team like that who's never won a major trophy, that's great to see, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, relegation. Any surprise for you, really? I know your answer.
No. No surprise whatsoever.
No, I think
not a chance.
I think you predicted all 3 of them teams to be in a bottom 3, just not in the right order. Otherwise, you might have won this thing. But so there's a spoiler. You've not won it, Stu.
I know.
But I do think I do think it's fascinating thing that's happening in the last sort of. It's only happened the last 2-3 years. This where the teams that have come up have gone down.
Yeah.
Before then, it didn't happen as much. So it has been the last sort of 2-3 years. If that continues, you've got Burnley, Leeds, and who's the other team? Sheffield United? No, who else come up? Burnley, Leeds.
Sunderland.
It's eluded me. Who's the other team that are coming up this year? Sunderland. So I'd be interested to see if Burnley, Leeds, and Sunderland go straight back down. It will be very interesting to see that. But we can talk about that another time. But yeah, I don't think there was any surprises in Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton being in them bottom threes, really. There's a few people who predicted Leicester to survive it, including myself. I thought they would survive that, but clearly not.
Can we relegate Everton before you?
The hate for Everton from Liverpool. Well, it's the same. I don't like Arsenal, so it's exactly the same. Or Chelsea.
Last one, Dan. I knew they'd beaten them twice in 1990 and 2016.
Yeah, the 1991 was it was that when Ian
that was
Wright
replay, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was Ian Wright. Didn't he kind of come to the fore? That was the final where he scored a couple, I think. Yeah. So. But
let's do Forest. We have spoken about Forest, Palps. You've missed it, but welcome. Somehow you missed it. Sorry, Adam.
So I don't know how we're going to reveal this, but do you want to do like a drum roll, do a top 5 of who's won and who's not won?
Well, I don't know about a drum roll, but I've not, I didn't have the budget for that. If I'd have known that, I'd have cheaped out on the giveaway prize here. So no, I was only joking. So go on in.
So I'm going to show everybody's in a minute. I'll show everybody's position and the way we scored it. Like we said halfway through the season, it was you got a point every time you got a team within. So say you predicted one of the teams to finish in the top 7 and they finished in the top 7, no matter where they finished, you got a point. If you predicted them to finish in exactly the same position that they did finish in, you got an extra point. So, for example, if you predicted Liverpool to win the league and they won the league, you'd get 2 points for that prediction. So that's how we've scored it. But coming in at 5th, I'll do a top 5. So coming in at 5th, we've already mentioned him, and I don't know if he's in the chat. I know he's got quite a lot going on with moving and that. Kev Cox. So Kev Cox coming in at 5th. Number 4 was yourself, young Stuart. So you tumbled from 3rd to 4th.
That was mid-season. That was midway through.
Mid-season, you were in 3rd, and you must have lost a couple of games towards the end of the season. You finished in 4th, mate. Top 3. So someone who's in the chat, I think, in 3rd was Sai Mangafangdanga.
Oh, well, Sai, 3rd place.
3rd place for Sai. He was in 4th halfway through the season. He swapped positions with you. So Sai finished 3rd. And then 2nd. So can you guess who it is? Can you remember back to where he was mid-table?
That's about right, Dan. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So 2nd was Gary Moore. So Gary Moore was actually top halfway through the season. So he came in 2nd.
So what are the points totals for the top guys in the top 5?
So in 5th with 9 points was Kev. You got 9 points as well in 4th. Sai got 10 points. Gary Moore got 11 points. So it's only like 1 point in it for everybody, really. And do you know who finished 1st? Well, you do know who finished 1st.
I know who finished 1st, but should we just
get it out of the way?
Get it out of the way. Yeah.
It's someone called Adam. As in,
it's not Adam Long,
me?
Is it? Yeah.
As in me? Yeah, no. I was 2nd midway through the season, but I ended up finishing 1st. And I'm quite happy to share the positions in a minute. So it was all very close, really. And what struck me about doing this when I was putting the points together and all that was just how bad we all were. It was just how bad we all were at predicting where we'd finish. It's quite hilarious, like as in what teams would finish where. So do you want me to share what I've got in front of me?
Yeah.
And then I can
No,
sorry, Gary, mate. I hate to beat you.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, I guess we could have done a fantasy football really if we'd have thought about it, but we didn't think about it. So, well, you've just given us a good idea for next season, Gen X Brian.
Yeah, I do. The funny thing is, I do fantasy football privately with a few people. I love it.
Is that as big as that'll go?
Oh, give me a moment, mate.
Oh, sorry.
Warm me up. And anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
So
chance. I'll just go nod my head and go, yeah.
Can you not see that? That's pretty big.
I can. I can see it.
So what we've got here is I explain it. What we've got here, we've got the top 7 and the relegation positions as of mid-season. And then when I had done this, which was the end of the season, 28th of May, we've got the finishing positions, etc. And then these are all our predictions. And where a dark yellow color is means that person predicted the right position for that team. So if you take the top 5, we all predicted Arsenal to finish in second, and they did.
Des thought he got 9 points as well.
You did get 9 points, mate.
So you kind of like finished.
Yeah, but you came just outside the top. I only done the top 5. So, and yeah, you're joint 5th with Kev, Gap, Daniel, and Des. But I just, I done it that way because he predicted the winner of the cup. So I felt, and it was a pretty bold prediction. So that's why I just put Kev at the top one there. So, so that's kind of how it worked out. So yeah, Gary Moore. I think what cost Gary Moore. You did get an extra point. You did get an extra point, and you still finished 10th. Gary Moore. The thing that cost Gary Moore, I would say, was putting West Ham and Spurs top 7. I put Spurs obviously in the top 7 as well, but I didn't put West Ham there, so I think that cost him a bit. And he only predicted one of the bottom 3 in the correct position, which again cost him a bit. So if he'd have put Leicester 18th, he would have been joint the same amount of points as me. But that's basically how it worked out. Ironically, the irony is not lost on me, by the way, that I regularly say you can't predict football, but somehow I won something where we predicted the outcome of football. So that is just ironic in itself. But yeah, it was good fun. And it's quite interesting, like I said, to look at the predictions we made and where these teams finished.
He's very professional. He's a stat man, Kevin.
I don't know about professional. No, Spurs or Man U. No one would have predicted that. Like so many people, I remember at the start of the season not agreeing with this, but loads of people had Man U to finish top 7, and I was one of the few people who didn't have them in my top 7, and I thought, oh, that's a bit bold. But I was confident Man U were going to finish outside the top 7. But the majority of people did think they would finish. Like people got them 3rd, which
who put Man United 3rd?
We've got Eric Brown. He supports Man U.
Yeah.
Daniel Chart, he's a Man U man. But Sai even thought they'd finish 3rd. Whoa. So there's quite a few there. And then there's few people in 4th. There's a lot of people thought they'd finish 5th. I don't think anybody really predicted. If someone had told you to put money on Spurs and Man U finishing where they finished, I don't think many people would have done that, to be honest. So despite mitigating circumstances for both teams, etc., I don't think anybody would have predicted that in a million years. So, but yeah, that's it. So I can unshare that. But
okay,
I don't know how to do that. Sorry.
There you go.
But there you go. So there we go. That was the predictions. We can talk about obviously. We can talk about obviously. What we think may be the case for next season.
Hello, Keith. No worries.
No worries. I think it's too early to predict because no one's made any. Well, hardly any teams made any signings. A lot can change between now and August. So,
See, I remember when we did the first one, beginning of the season, I was so adamant that the Premier League, is so predictable with the three teams going up, going down, and Man City constantly winning over and over and over and over again. And I had that in my head that that's how it was going to be. I really did just think I couldn't foresee Man City dropping off as much as they did. I know Spurs have had a lot of injuries this season, but again, do you kind of feel that Ange sort of like prioritized Europe more than the league?
Did. Yeah, he 100% did. He came out, didn't he? And I was quite shocked. I knew he had started to, but he came out and said in January, like he basically came out and said from January, he walked into Levy and said, I'm focusing on Europe. And that didn't go down well with a lot of people at Spurs, but he just said that's all he's, and from January, and it shows that from about, I think, the 7th game from the end, we started putting out second teams. So did Man U to a degree. And I'm not sure I agree with that, if I'm personally, even despite I'm a Spurs fan, I don't know if I agree with that logic. Yeah, we won a cup, but I don't like the fact when teams start prioritising competitions.
Here's a question for you, Adam. Do you feel if the gap between Spurs and Man United and the three teams that got relegated wasn't as big as it was, it would have been a lot, it'd have been a lot tighter. Do you think they would have still gone on that same course of action by?
No. This is the thing. I think if Man U and Spurs, realised quite early on that they weren't going to get relegated, even though they were down the bottom of the league. The teams below them were terrible. Let's not mix our words here. They were terrible. And I think you're right. I think if there was any danger that them teams thought, oh my God, we might get relegated here, you wouldn't have seen the teams that the teams put out. Like I remember we went, I think it was to Fulham or the game after Fulham, and that was game 31 or 32. And it was an unrecognisable team. Like, we were playing Ben Davies and Archie Gray at centre-back when we had Romero and Van der Ven on the bench. Both fit. And I thought, something's up here, like as in, and you wouldn't have done that. If you really thought you were going to potentially, you might be in trouble, you wouldn't have done that. And I'm, like I said, I don't know if I agree with it personally, because I'm a sort of a football fan that likes teams to put out their best team all the time.
Yeah.
You can't really argue with the logic in the respect, if you look at Ange, he went and won a trophy. So you can't really argue with that logic. However, I'm not sure I like it personally, as in, I like to win a trophy.
Will it cost him his job?
Pardon?
Will it cost him his job?
If you're asking me as Spurs fan, I'm on the fence about whether he should stay in charge or not anyway. You could argue he's deserved the right to be given a chance because he won Europa. However, I wouldn't be shocked because for me, I felt it was a bit of a crazy thing to do personally. And I kind of agree with what Daniel's saying there. Once I think Man U and Spurs realised, they're not going to finish higher than 12th or 11th. What's the point of playing for the league? They're not going to get relegated. Let's just throw it. But I still don't like it because I'm a season ticket holder, right? So if I'm going to games knowing Spurs are going to put out a weak team, I don't want to go to the games. Why do I want to go and watch the second team? You know what I mean? I'm not going for that. So for me, it felt a bit like they were, fobbing the fans off a bit, because you knew they were putting out weak teams. I didn't like that. So, that's just, that's it.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Well, yeah, there is that argument. I don't know what's going to happen with Ange, whether they're going to let him go or not. All I do know is something I don't have control over, so I don't really care too much. If it happens, it happens. You can't control these things. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't.
Newcastle did qualify for the Champions League, didn't they?
Because fifth went out because the coefficient fifth now, which is mad in itself. Fifth is now a Champions League spot.
Well, they've got that European Super League now, haven't they?
Well, that's
basically what it is.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, the way they've set it up as well, but
yeah.
UEFA, not UEFA, who's it? FIFA had already set up the format. This league format was done about 5 years ago, but it just took a long time to get put in place. In terms of obviously, if I just speak about what Daniel Chart said, I didn't care about qualifying for Champions League. I was just pleased we won a trophy. If you know what I mean, I wanted us to win a trophy, a European trophy, and that, you know, that to me was a good thing. Like, whether we're in the Champions League or not, it's kind of like a bit of an icing on the cake, but I don't really care too much.
So that qualifies you for the Champions League as well?
Of course it does. It always has been the case.
So we've got 6 teams from England in the Champions League. Bloody hell. Wow.
Yeah, it's a joke, really. I don't agree with it. It's the way it's set up. You could argue, though, the Premier League is the strongest. The Premier League is the strongest league in the world, so therefore, you know, it should have the most teams in it. You know, you could argue that fact, but I think it's a bit silly, if I'm honest.
I agree, Gen X, Brian. I do think you should have relegation, because it would give add a little extra dimension to the leagues and stuff like that, and it gives people something to fight for as well. If you know you're not going to get relegated at the end of the season, then I don't know. I don't see the point in that, but never mind.
Yeah, they don't have a pyramid system, do they? So
no.
But anyway, obviously, we don't want to keep waffling on too long.
Well, I suppose you want to know what you've won.
Oh yeah, I've won a prize, haven't I?
You did. As you're a Spurs fan, right? As this is a football chat, I searched high and low.
Okay.
For a 1980s Spurs Subbuteo team.
I love that.
Fully, they're all good.
What year is it?
1980s. It doesn't actually say the year, but I know this is 1980s because these were the packaging in 1980s. So every single player is in great condition. I love it. None of them are broken. The goalkeeper is all in one piece.
That's good.
So this is...
You don't want a broken goalkeeper, do you? Otherwise, you might as well call him
number 700, I think that is. So there's that. You've won that. And then...
I love that.
Going back to your White Hart Lane days, you've got 2 Tottenham players, Subbuteo players.
I like that. That's cute. That's cool.
And at White Hart Lane.
I love that. Yeah,
so
I saw many games at that stadium. So
when I see you, I think you're going to Reigate Toy Fair, aren't you, on the 22nd?
Yes, Reigate. Are you going Reigate? Because I've got some.
I will be going to Reigate. I can drop those off. Off to you.
I've got Gary Moore has gifted you some stuff, so I'm going to give them.
Oh, well, thank you. As well. Thank you very much, Gary Moore. Very much appreciated. Cheers, man. Thank you. Yeah, so 22nd then. So reason people are moaning in Europe is Europa used to be way tougher.
You should have never have been that, though.
Yeah.
You should have never have been
that.
No, it shouldn't have been. And that's just an Arsenal supporter. I'm not shocked he's saying that. It's just because we've won three European Cups and Arsenal have only ever won one.
No, but I agree. I agree. I don't think that teams in the Champions League go straight into, and so that's
should have never been like that.
The point system means that the ELP is granted more champions. Yeah,
it's coefficient. It's a coefficient thing. Last year it was Germany who got the extra place. Next year it might be Germany again. You don't know. It might be Spain. It depends on how well the teams do in the competition. So if you get a lot of Spanish teams go really far in next year's Champions League, they might be able to get the extra position. So it's a coefficient thing.
I mean, you've got 6 teams from the Premier League. I think you've got 5 teams from the German league, 5 teams from the Italian league, 5 teams for the Spanish league or whatever. It is the Super League. It's what they've always sort of like wanted. And I don't know.
It is definitely a backdoor way of doing it, but
season ticket for Everton. Oh God! Oh, I see Adam getting a nice Subbuteo set up now.
I haven't got the space. That will stay.
Give it a few months, Des, and you'll be there, mate. Look around.
That will hang on my new. I'm gonna. That will hang on my new mock wall behind.
Yeah,
and that's what's gonna hang on. So
no. I had a lot of Subbuteo teams as well back in the 80s, and I loved those. And I'm looking at this thinking, oh God, I could be tempted to get into it, but I know George is watching, so I'm not tempted at all. There you are. I'm glad I came second. You would
have got a different prize, Gary.
Gary, just Martin. You get nothing for second.
Sure, I hear that if Gary had won it, we were going to get him a vinyl cake Jawa. Oh, what a shame. He didn't.
Yeah.
Win. Such a shame.
I'm backing you, mate. Haha. Oh, it's
I
backing
dunno.
who? Me or
Me and Brian are always having a
okay.
tit for tat about Arsenal and Spurs.
Give the Champions League a few seasons to settle down, and it will show how the top teams rise to the top through the other Europe. True. Yeah.
Have you got any final thoughts? Because we didn't want to do a long stream because this is really only to just kind of say, who had won and what we'd thought. Have you got any final thoughts?
Have I got any final thoughts? I just think overall, not saying it because Liverpool won the league. Again, like I say, I wouldn't have predicted them to win the league with the changes that have gone on and stuff like that. But I just think overall, I thought it was a really good competitive season, regardless if people think, oh, well, no one challenged Liverpool. That's beside the point. I still think Arsenal were there or thereabouts. I think they were missing a few players. So it'd be interesting to see what happens next year. I'm not going to lie.
That missing link is a striker. But yeah,
I can't stand City. I'm glad they had a little collapse. Whether or not they've done it because of this 115, I don't know, or whatever it is.
I don't think it's nothing to do with the players. I don't think they would be like that. I think it's just unfortunately they've won. Let's be honest. They've won everything the last sort of 5-6 years. The motivation must be really hard to stay motivated to keep wanting to win. Now it might be a subconscious thing, and also they did lose one of their best players. So I think they've done well to finish third. If I'm completely honest, considering where they started from, they were terrible.
Yeah.
So,
I would have liked to have seen Nottingham Forest finish in the top 4, top 5 for sure. Like I say, really pleased. Newcastle, Crystal Palace won the cups, the domestic cups. I think it's really refreshing to see other teams win. It does get boring seeing the same teams win over and over again. It really does. I've got to say, surprised at Tottenham, but after a while, I kind of got the feeling that it was the Europa League that they were going to be chasing down, and they prioritised that. The same with Man United, but then again, listen, I know Man United are our biggest rivals, but to see what's happened to that club over the last few years, the way it's been run, it is such a shame. It really is. I want to see Man United up there challenging.
I think they will be back. It just might take a bit long. I said, I don't think Daniel Chart agreed with me. Let's put it this way. But I said at the start of the season that I felt Man U would need 2 or 3 seasons before they're back. And I still stand by that. I think they will be back. I'm confident of that. But they're brought so poorly the last sort of 4 or 5 years. They really have. And they need to sort that out. But it's only a matter of time. They're a massive club. Massive club. So
not Newcastle though. They're another Man City with a horrible nation. Yeah, well, true. Yeah, true. Shame.
Can I just say from my
I did try to say it with a straight face, Martin. I did.
Can I just say my summary? Because I'm not going to take my team I support into consideration here. So forgetting about what Spurs done in the league, etc. I feel this season was actually a really interesting Premier League season. Like personally, I found it fascinating because you every game you just didn't know who was going to win. I didn't think at all. Like, it don't matter who was playing who. I felt it was really unpredictable. I enjoyed the fact that, as much as, weirdly, I didn't want Newcastle to win the League Cup. That's just me. But, it's nice to see Newcastle and Palace win the Cups.
Yeah.
Bit of a shame. The bottom 3 that came up have gone back down. Like the top 3 that came up for the Championship gone back down. But otherwise, I'd say it's just a really interesting season, and I think it'd be interesting to see how that goes on, and if it's still still as unpredictable as it was this season.
Do you think teams like Brentford, Brighton, Bournemouth, Villa, Nottingham Forest will be there or thereabouts next season? Fulham, for example. I mean,
I think Villa, you've named Villa out there. I think Villa, that's a bit pretty harsh putting Villa in that bundle. I think Villa are a bit better than all the teams you named there. However, I do think the others you've named will be in and around where they are. I don't see any of them really breaking away, and I don't see any of them really going the other way. I think they are that middle third that I talked about. I just think they're going to hover around there. They will get good results because on their day they're a good team. So, see you later, Gary.
Cheers, Gary. Appreciate it, mate. Take care.
But you're right. I personally don't. I think the likes of Brentford, Brighton, Fulham, are probably going to be in or around, that middle third that I keep talking
Yeah.
about. Like I said, I tend to split the league into 3 thirds, and I kind of feel like they're going to be one of them teams in there. So, but again, it's hard to predict because you don't know what teams are going to sign players, who they're going to lose, and stuff like that. And so, and after this season, I'm pretty much scared to say anybody. Despite me winning this little thing, I don't feel comfortable with any of my predictions these days.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting you said that about Villa. It's interesting.
I think Villa are a good team, though. Emery's a good manager. Let's put it that way. He's a good manager. Yeah,
it does. Yeah. It all does depend on recruitment and departures and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see what happens next season. Anyways, right, gents, that is it for the live stream. We just wanted to go through our final placings for the season's prediction review. So well done, Adam. Good job, mate. I think, how many people did you say took part?
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that did take part. It was certainly fun and gave a different element to it. So there was 18 people that took part.
Well, that's not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah. I said that I probably won't do this again next season, but I say a lot of stuff. Who knows?
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I just want to appreciate and say thank you to everybody. Oh, hey, Mr. B, how you doing? Nice of you to join us. Thank you very much. We're just about to go now. I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who did take part. And cheers, guys. Really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you to the chat. Well done, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
great chat, guys. Give yourselves a clap on the back for your efforts. Well, not really done anything. And I've got to say, I can't remember what I was going to say. I was just literally going to say something, and I
ruined the ending there. It was all like really professional, and then you just gone blank. So
I have just gone blank. What was I going to say? I have no idea. I can't remember. That is outrageous. But anyway, thank you very much. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.